let's move into Switzerland. Obviously, Switzerland has had been quite an active area of late, particularly the Franc soaring. It looks like the Swiss National Bank might be panicking a little about the state of its country's economy, concerned no doubt that the Swiss franc is going to gain even more strength after the infamous peg removal. Now it seems there's a plan afoot to create a soft peg around 1.05 to 1.10. You've got any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Switzerland is a fascinating country, a great country to visit, even more expensive country to visit now as a consequence of the Swiss franc moves. But here's my take on what they've been up to and where it's going. I think there have been two really interesting events in Switzerland over the last few months. Everybody talks about them de-pegging from the euro and hence the Swiss franc going up sharply. But here's the other event, just a month or two before that, which I think is also important. There was a referendum which was discussing whether the Swiss should actually forcibly hold a large amount of gold on the Swiss National Bank's balance sheet or not. And the Swiss National Bank argued against that because they said it would inhibit their flexibility. And actually that ended to be the referendum result. That motion was defeated and the Swiss National Bank still has the flexibility to some extent do what it likes. And I think what that tells you is that what Switzerland realised, if you put those two events together, is that you're moving into a tricky backdrop where flexibility should be encouraged above everything else. And the National Bank, because they realise they've got a small economy which could potentially be buffeted by all the other issues and complexities in the world generally, and obviously all the companies that they're exactly the same way. As a consequence, they want flexibility and they want to be able to do things which will be in their own interest if certain other things kick off. So the way I perceive it is that the Swiss franc, they want it under their own control. They don't want it pegged against another currency. They may well have, for stability reasons, an unofficial peg, second peg against the euro. But that's only because probably they don't want speculators to be overly pushing it around one way or the other. But what it tells you is that Switzerland want independence of thought. They're an independent political country. They want independent economic thought and as much flexibility around that as possible. And they want that because they realise is that there's no point in following everybody else down one way when they perhaps for their own self reasons go the other. And let's face it, if you look at Switzerland and think about its structure, it's got a material private banking industry, hugely important for the country. You think about why people put their money into Swiss banks or into Swiss institutions. Obviously lots of recent controversy about privacy and stuff like that, but the other reason is stability. And if there's one word that the Swiss wish to entrench in a world where things like privacy is becoming under a microscope more closely, it would be stability. And if you think about debts and deficits and volatility and everything else, that is the antithesis of stability. And the way to get stability in an uncertain world is to take back control of your own events and not to peg against the euro and not to be part of bigger economic zones and the like. It's actually, if you've got the sufficient assets and the sufficient credibility to do it like the Swiss have, is to step aside and do things yourself. And that's a differentiation with Greece. And that's why, Greece cutting and running and reintroducing the drachma, you say, well, hang on, haven't sort of the Swiss done that in a sort of a way and form? Why can't it work for Greece as well? The big difference is Greece doesn't have the credibility and the backstop and the assets to do it. And in an uncertain world, for somebody like Greece, far better to stay with the big backing of the European Union, but also rationally for a Switzerland with all those backings and that historic stability set up to go and do their own thing.